the Southwest Tech Board of Directors.
Recording in progress.
John, the first thing on the agenda is just welcome and public comments.
Welcome, everybody. I don't see anybody. I don't see any public comments here. Is that correct? No public comments?
I don't see anybody here.
Okay. And the next item for the agenda is what's the next item?
Next item are three action items. One is the teacher collective bargaining agreement settlement, the ESP settlement, and the CTE recovery plan. I'm assuming we'll take each one of those individually, and I believe that Becky will likely lead the discussion on the teacher and the ESP bargaining agreement settlements.
Okay.
Right. What I'd like to do is just share my screen. So it'll just take me a minute to make sure. So I have 3 monitors attached, so I just need to get the right document. Can everybody see this teacher settlement?
Yeah.
Appendix A?
Yep.
Okay. So what I'd like to do, and some of you have already been through this because you sit on other boards, but for the purposes of the minutes for this meeting and for the members who only serve on this board, I just want to give you kind of a bullet item of what was agreed to, what changes happened in the teacher's contract, and then I would ask that the board do a vote to approve or discuss and approve this negotiated contract. I will share with you both the bullet points, and then we can take a look at the salary grid as well for the teachers, and then I'll do the same thing for the ESP. So for the teachers negotiated contract, we negotiated a 3-year contract that included step plus 1.5% increase. And in addition to that, step number 21, or formerly known as step number 21, was a 3/4 step. It was negotiated to become a full step. The difference with that was in a 3/4 step, the increase was $1,166, and a full step, the increase went to $1,578. So as far as bullet points, number 2, Appendix B, the increase hourly rate, what that refers to is when teachers are asked to maybe do some committee work that's under some type of grant where they're receiving a stipend, a payment, or if they cover another teacher's class. The current rate was $32.75 for a number of years. So what was agreed to is increasing it year by year. So for this contract year, it would increase to $35. In the next year, it would be $38. And in the third year of the contract, $40 would be their rate. Just one thing to note, if you have questions, I can't see you right now because I can only see this document I'm sharing. So I apologize if somebody has a hand raised. I don't have any visible way of seeing that. So if you have questions, you can either just speak up or we can discuss it at the end. Question or bullet number 3 has to do with developing a committee. So the faculty and support staff, along with members of the district, will form a committee, a collaborative committee, to discuss issues of staff safety. And it just has a date in there when the first meeting must happen before October 1st. Article number 4 is also about developing a committee, and the sick bank already has a committee, and the language is that it should be a joint committee of association and administrative representatives. So it's just kind of clearing up that language to make sure that the administrative representatives are on the committee, and the representation is 50-50. And each group, the association and the administrative schools, in this case, each school that's in the contract would send representatives. They get to pick the representatives to serve on that committee. Number 5, Article 23.1 basically changes the language. Instead of handing a printed contract, copy of the contract to every employee, it allows us to just simply post the contract on, and in this case, it would be the Southwest Tech website, but to post the website within 30 days of the signing of all agreement of all parties. So instead of having to print out all the copies, we just have to make sure one is accessible online. Article 25.4.
Rebecca, can you just scroll up? We can only see part of Article 23.
Can you see it now?
No.
Okay. Because I can't see what you see.
The first line of Article 23, that's all. Modify existing language as follows,
That's all you can see?
Yes.
and everything above it.
Okay,
Yeah,
Now-
it's cut off after that, Becky. There you go.
okay,
There we
I'm
go.
There we
sorry.
go.
My view is the whole thing, so I apologize.
There you
Can
go.
you see 25.4 at this point?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, okay, my apologies. So Article 25.4 is just timelines in the contract to reflect the evaluation process. So it's just kind of modifying the language, a post-observation of teachers, when the formal observation happens, when the write-ups need to take place, and when there could be a response. So it was just kind of modifying that to reflect the new timelines that were already negotiated outside of this contract. So we just needed to place them in the contract. So these dates of 12 days and 10 days were already negotiated and settled, and we just needed to finalize it in the contract itself. Article 26.26. Again, it's changes in the timeline that the administration distributes the seniority list as well as the certification list. This way, it doesn't overlap with the issuing of contracts being granted for the following year. So it kind of bumps up when we have to have our seniority lists in, and they have a chance to say that the length of service list is not right. There's something that needs to be changed. This way, everything is set and in place before we have to either renew teacher contracts or issue RIF layoff notices. So it's in their favor that we have these lists posted and agreed upon sooner, so it creates a smoother timeline. Article 29.18 really pertains to the elementary school, but it basically provides a stipend for the designated teacher in charge if there's absence of a building administrator. And a lot of times in the elementary schools, if the principal is not in the building, in the past, they've asked for a teacher to be the teacher in charge of the building. This now gives them a stipend for doing that. It doesn't say it can't happen in other buildings, but a lot of times at the high school level or at the tech center here, not only do we have the director, superintendent director, but we have an assistant director. So we don't necessarily utilize this language because we already have someone else that could oversee the building. So it's primarily for elementary school is 29.18. Article 29.23 and Article 29.24 are strictly elementary school provisions that have to do with duties in the elementary schools. On a day a teacher is assigned to more than one building, shall not be assigned administrative duties. And this 29.23 is under the elementary section of the contract. Within the teacher's contract, there's certain articles that pertain to elementary school, that pertain to MAUHS, and that pertain to Southwest Tech. So this article has to do with the elementary school provisions. So does Article 29.26. Again, it's an elementary school provision that has to do with representatives for developing a collaborative committee to discuss elementary prep time. Article 29.31F is an MAUHS provision. So again, it doesn't pertain to us. It has to do with paying teachers for teaching an additional course. This is not Southwest Tech language, so this is not us. but the language is here for you to see as part of the contract. Article 29.32D is Southwest Tech. This language has to do with our provision when a teacher teaches an additional course. The stipend is a flat rate now of $3,200 for a 60-minute semester-long course. It was originally $2,500, and it had been $2,500 for a number of years. So the increase went to $3,200. And Article 30.1B is again an SVSU schools provision. It is not necessarily Southwest Tech. And it's talking about these particular schools and where there's a freeze in the salary grid. If you are not beyond a bachelor's plus 30 column, you can't advance past step 15. And again, this is not a clause for Southwest Tech. This is just a clause in the contract for the other schools, the SVSU schools, and it's a clause that's been in the contract. It's just refining the language to make it clearer. And then to take a quick look at the salary grid, this is for, and can you see this grid at all?
Yes,
Okay, so this is for FY 21-22, this coming school year. It reflects the step increase and a 1.5% increase. And this is the gray area they were talking about in the SVSU part of the contract, but it is not part of Southwest Tech. So Southwest Tech instructors do not freeze at this point. They can progress down. And the reason for that is we have a lot of people coming from industry that may be in this degree level. And in order to attract employees and keep them and have them move from industry to here, we needed to be able to potentially keep up with industry salaries. So we do not have that freeze on the grid. So I'm going to stop sharing this one and ask if there are any questions of anything that I went over. And if not, it's up to you if you want to make a motion for approving the contract.
I just have a comment. I
Yes.
would love to hear some testimonials from Southwest Tech staff on their thoughts on this. That's all.
Well, the unions have already voted and approved to this contract. So they've already ratified for the teachers anyway. They've already agreed and approved this contract.
And also there was a teacher rep from Southwest Tech served on the negotiating committee as well, Asher.
Yes.
As well as Meg. Meg also.
Correct,
was
Megan.
there.
Megan Becky.
And myself, yes.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great overview. Thank you.
Is there any discussion then?
Nope.
More questions?
I'd move the
I'll move
contract.
There you go. I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the contract as presented,
Aye.
please raise your hand.
Aye.
Looks to me unanimous to me, and so therefore it's been approved. Can we move on to the next section then?
Yep, it would be the ESP contract.
Right.
And
Yes.
I'll do the same thing with the ESP. And again, I can't see you. I'll try to make sure that you can see the section. So with the ESP contract, this one is a 2-year contract. And the reason for this one being a 2-year versus a 3-year is so that we are not cycling and negotiating 2 contracts at the same time, which we've been doing the last few years. So it was decided to do a 2-year contract for this one so that we're only handling one contract each time. They negotiated the same kind of increase. It is a step plus 1.5% each year. But the addition is they were now including dental coverage for the individual at a 90/10, which I'll talk about later on in the details. So it was a 1.5% increase plus step, and dental for a single plan at 90% covered by the employer. The articles, Article 1 is an elementary article, just replacing the name. In our contract still had all of the names of the elementary schools. So it is just changing it to SVU ESD. Article 8.6, again, is just like in the teacher's contract. It's a collaborative committee to discuss staff safety. So they will also have representatives on that committee. The teachers, the ESP staff, and administration would develop that committee. Article 8.7 is just asking that any new paraprofessionals that are hired, that they receive CPI, crisis prevention interaction training, as soon as possible after hiring them. And there's not a date set in there because there are some contractual, as far as copyright issues of obtaining the documentation that's used for the training, but as soon as possible. Article 11.3, the only thing that's changed in this contract is where it has the word employer, used to say employee unit, and that became confusing to some. They didn't understand what was meant by employee unit. Excuse me. So it says the superintendent may from time to time change the assignment of an employee, but may not assign the employee to a different employer. We are our own employer and we only have Southwest Tech. So again, this doesn't necessarily pertain to us. It has to do with if you work in one elementary school and you are assigned to, if they're saying they're trying to move you to Mount Anthony High School, that becomes a different employer. Article 11.6 says that if there are any changes to a job description, the changes need to be sent to the union at least 10 work days for them to comment on it before the description becomes firm. And also says that each employee that's hired will be assigned to a classification and group that is specified in Appendix A, which they already are. It's just the language is there now. Article 11.8 is an increase in pay for covering for a teacher. Originally, it was $2 an hour, more than their regular pay. And in this case, now the increase was to $3 per hour. Article 11.10, again, does not pertain to us, but a paraprofessional who substitutes for an intensive special needs specialist who is absent shall receive pay each hour at that new group 2 rate. So for other schools, that means it's an increase in pay for that paraprofessional while they're doing that. Article 15.6, again, it's same as the teachers. It's a committee to administer the sick bank. And it just again clarifies that there would be 50% representation by administration and 50% by the union, the ESP Association, to administer the sick bank that's there for them. Article 16.5, this just allows that the assistant director, and if the superintendent director is absent, it allows the assistant director to approve an unpaid leave of absence request rather than having to bring it right to the board. So previously, the language said only superintendent. And for us, it means the assistant director. For SVSU, it meant the assistant superintendent. So it allowed, in case there's a reason for an absence of the superintendent, to allow someone to be able to approve those requests. Article 18, hospital and surgical insurance. So 18.1, 18.2, 0.3, and 0.4 are all just language that's already reflected in the statewide health insurance agreement. And it's just showing that we're abiding by that language. So it's in the contract. Article 18.4 is now the dental insurance, and they were offered the same dental insurance as the teachers. So the employer or board will pay 90% of the dental insurance coverage for a single person. So for the staff member, if a staff member wants to elect to have a two-person or family plan, the rest of the cost is at their own expense. But they now will have single dental insurance, which they did not have before. And that's all of what 18.6 discusses. Or 18.4, I'm sorry. 18.6 clarifies some existing language. All of this clarifies that if an employee leaves after signing an agreement, but they leave prior to December 1st of the following year, of that year, they owe the employer back some money. So July and August, health insurance is paid, but the employee doesn't start having the deduction come out of their paycheck until September. So if the employee signs the contract back in May, when we offer the renewal of the contract, we cover their health insurance. And let's say in September, or October, they leave employment with us, they are obligated to repay any of the health insurance that has not been paid for yet, because we covered them during those summer months. So this just kind of clarifies the language, what the formula is, and makes it clear that there would be a repayment expected. Article 19.6, it clarifies when a step is granted between contract years. So when an employee shall advance on the salary schedule unless otherwise negotiated. An example of that is for the paras, this contract year, they did not receive a step. The FY21 contract year, it was negotiated, they did not receive a step. So it's just kind of clarifying, when do you get the step? When could it not happen? And also, if you are hired, if you haven't worked more than 50% of the work days, you would remain on the existing step the next full year. Article 19.9 is, it's not an option for us. So there is no Blue Cross Blue Shield, does not allow us to offer retirement coverage of health insurance after they retire. So this language was removed. Article 20.4, no longer relevant, again, based on the statewide health insurance coverage. So 20.4 is removed because it's not relevant. And Article 20.5 is just modifying existing language that shows you would receive higher pay for any days worked at the higher rate position. And again, this is more SVSU when they have paraprofessionals cover for maybe an intensive needs para, then it's a higher rate. But we basically have one classification, but it's showing that you would receive that higher rate. And it basically removed the qualifier of 5 days to receive that rate. In the past, they had to work 5 days in a row before they would receive the higher rate. This says they would immediately receive that higher rate. And to take a look at the salary itself, we are on this page here. This is regional technical. We are group 2, and group 3 is the para who covers the school store and credit union. And this is simply what the 21-22 pay rates would be, the steps. And again, it would be group 2 and group 3 that are paras. Most of them, with the exception of one, would be group 2. Right. I'm trying to get back out of screen sharing, and of course, all of a sudden, I can't seem to find it. So,
In the
Welcome.
meanwhile,
Welcome to my world, Becky.
yeah, the button up at the top is not popping. Oh, it's popping up way over on my other screen. That's why.
Oh, I found a place I can stop it for you. There you go.
Oh, I got it. I have 3 monitors on and it showed up on the top of another monitor off to my side. So again, unless there are specific questions about it, I would ask that you consider voting a motion to vote on this contract.
So moved.
Second, third,
all of those in favor of accepting the contract as presented,
Aye.
say aye.
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 The hand-
Aye.
Aye.
It appears unanimous. And I
Thank
guess the
you.
next item on the agenda is the presentation of the recovery plan.
All right, I guess it's my turn to go.
Thank you, Becky.
Yes, thank you, Becky. Actually, and before I start, I want to say thank you to the negotiating team, both on the teacher side and the board and school representation side. I know there were a lot of hours spent, so many late nights spent negotiating up until 9, 10 o'clock at night, some nights. So thank you for all those who were involved with that. And I'm very happy that you were able to come to a 3-year agreement with the teachers and at least a 2-year agreement with the paras so that they can cycle on and off. And hopefully we can get back to the business of education and spending less time in behind closed doors negotiating. So thank you for all that. I know that it is a lot of hard work to do that. So the recovery plan, for those who are watching, obviously this is recorded, the state of Vermont required all school districts in the state to develop an educational recovery plan, although it's called something different if you're in elementary school or a middle school or a high school. Initially, the tech centers were left out of that planning, and we were ever so thankful. But someone remembered to include us eventually in the planning of CTE recovery. And so anyway, I knew they wouldn't forget us for long term, but so anyway, we had to complete a recovery plan. And as I shared with you last time, there were a couple trainings. The dates have had a couple targets on them. The AOE knew that it was a short turnaround time for us and kind of a bad time of year to be asking for this type of document. So there's really 3 phases of this document. 1 and 2 are combined, in which you'll sort of see today or hear today at least. 1 and 2, or phase 1 and 2 rather, are really the initial needs assessment and the recovery planning and implementation, which will occur throughout this coming school year. And then there is a phase 3, which is an evaluation stage about evaluating how your changes went and were they impactful for students? Did they work? Did they not work? Do we need state intervention? Do we need help, et cetera? And this is all focused on, comes out of COVID and the need and the recognition about how much students and adults, but students particularly, suffered with social emotional learning, truancy, academic achievement, engagement, et cetera, while during COVID, during hybrid learning, during remote learning, during whatever type of learning you can imagine. So, so the idea behind this was to develop, along with each of our sending schools, so depending on how big your district is, depends on how many schools you had to coordinate with, to come up with ideas to address the needs in the areas of social emotional learning, mental health and well-being, engagement and truancy, and academic achievement and success. I'm just scanning through a document here. Ours ended up being about 37 pages long. Some were about 17 pages and some were as high as 70 some pages long. So it just depends on what school you work at. So our theme is the same amongst each school district for us. They're essentially the same goals for each school. We know Mount Anthony has the majority of students that come to us, about 85%, give or take. That doesn't mean we don't have to include the other schools. So with that, you'll see that some of our strategies, and I'm not going to share my screen, I'm going to switch to a screen. This is in the Dropbox, both in the public Dropbox and in your own private Dropbox for the board. And so I just want to kind of give you the main ideas about what we are talking about. So when we talk about the recovery domain of social emotional learning and mental health and well-being, when I say we, Southwest Tech hopes to collaborate with a company called Selequity, 7 Mindsets of Selequity. It's a training program which will help us establish a student success team, which is responsible for reviewing the SEL screening data provided by MAU or other school district. I want to insert that here. It could be MAU, it could be BBA, it could be Arlington, it could be Hoosick Falls, it could be our home liaison, et cetera, to determine the trends and identify students who are in need of additional and supplemental SLE support. The student success team will include the assistant director, the school counseling coordinator, special needs coordinator, the work-based learning coordinator as needed, mental health professionals, and others as necessary on a case-by-case basis. The student success team will also coordinate with the student's teacher, or teachers, I should say, parent and guardian, school counselors at their sending school, and the necessary support professionals at their sending school, whether that be a mental health worker, a caseworker, a counselor, a trusted teacher, whatever it may be. The student success team here at Southwest Tech will also be responsible for meeting weekly to discuss any students who rise to the level of referral and developing interventions in conjunction with their sending high school. The student success team will also review any parent reported data and use it to help inform the support plan if needed. Parent comments will also be shared with the teacher's program or with the student's program teacher. Southwest Tech will also develop a delivery system to support teachers and paras to inform the support team of any concerning behaviors from students manifesting in the classroom, or information shared with them about outside of school concerns, such as facing eviction, death in the family, domestic violence, etc. There will also be ongoing professional development at training directed towards identifying students with social emotional learning needs, along with effective classroom interventions and follow-up as part of the Selequity program that we are looking at. Also, Southwest Tech will contract with a regional mental health agency such as UCS to have a part-time mental health specialist available to work with identified students while they are at our school. If they're not being served by their sending district, need additional support, or CTE time is being sacrificed for those needs at their sending school. Under engagement and truancy, some of the things that we looked at are attendance and discipline records, teacher comments in our Power School and Swift K-12 alert system, grades, student withdrawal and drop numbers, and students who get pulled for IEP service as well in tech programs. Are generally, as I said, Southwest Tech engagement. Attendance is generally very good. Pre-COVID pandemic levels were always very strong and was fairly maintained during our hybrid environment, but there's always room for improvement, including tracing in the system. So what we plan to do is Southwest Tech will more effectively manage attendance data, including the required submission of daily and period attendance. We already do that. I want to make clear that some of these things we already do. We just need to be better at doing them and following up with them. In collaboration with the SVSU and MAUHS, Southwest Tech will establish a systematic way to cross-share essential information about disciplinary issues, students who attend both of our schools, so we can be aware of crossover issues that primarily applies to students at MAU. We don't often see, I call them spillover issues between the two buildings. If there's something going on with a student at MAU, home situation or whatnot, it often spills over here to the tech center because we are attached. That isn't always the case when other schools come here. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's just not as frequent. We also plan to a review of grades for inconsistent performance and submission of assignments will be tracked more regularly by teachers and reported to the student success team. as well as parents through our new portal and our Swift K-12 Remind system. Southwest Tech will continue to contact student homes sooner than in the past when attendance issues arise. This contact may be from the assistant director, the school counseling coordinator, special needs coordinator as needed, or others, and specific criteria is being developed and implemented. We will also work directly, this is very important, with MAU and the SVSU on not pulling students from their designated tech program time, providing our own special ed and mental health support services where appropriate and needed. And I say here that AOE tech assistance may be needed with this if problems arise. MAUHS is transitioning to a different model of special ed intervention. For those of you that serve on the MAU board, I'm sure you're aware of that. That's a different style. We have not seen how that will all work out yet, but students should not be being pulled from their tech program for alternate interventions. It should happen during some other time. And the last category of academic achievement and success, things that we're going to look at, again, are grades and assessments, assignment completion, progress towards industry credential attainment, and CTSOs, which are student organizations participation. We looked at various data, including state placement data, AOE provided data, IRC attainment, and Perkins. So what we propose is on a regular basis, the student success team will review the indicators mentioned in the data column for all students and attempt to identify students in need of academic support. The student success team will contact the student's teacher for further clarification, and a credit recovery process will be instituted for students who have experienced issues preventing them from attending class or turning in assignments on a timely basis. This will include, but not limited to, before school and after school support programs, individual work with the teacher, independent study, our project-based learning, and better utilizing our learning lab during or after school or lunch. Also, in coordination with the special needs coordinator and administration, teachers who identify a significant number of students, i.e. approximately 25%, not meeting course requirements may request additional in-class support to help students come back into academic good standing. This could be an additional paraprofessional or other needs identified. Expectations of our instructors, and again, some of these are not new concepts or ideas, but better systems and accountability are probably needed for a better successful implementation. Instructors are expected to reach out to parents and guardians if they're noticing absences and developing into a pattern. For situations with little or no improvement response from the parent or guardian, the student success team will be notified to help develop the next step in strategizing. Let's see, for students that fall behind in their work, academic or written program work, teachers will complete a student referral form, the frequency and duration of which to be determined, and a member of the student support team will connect with that student to make a plan for completing missing assignments. Additionally, Southwest Tech administration will work collaboratively and within the contract for faculty and staff to develop classroom and office hours where they're available to provide extra help to their students as needed. This could be limited by the contractual bargaining agreement, but we'll have to see. Again, all Southwest Tech instructors have or will have identified an additional tier 2 industry credential to work towards in the coming year. Southwest Tech will develop and begin using a student success referral form, which is in development, to help address engagement and behavioral or other interventions as they arise with students. Staff roles, routines, and informational workflow will be developed throughout the summer. And in all instances, it is the expectation that Southwest Tech administration will clearly and articulately work with the sending school to ensure the appropriate liaisons are aware of the issues being reported to the student success team, and if appropriate, for disclosure to appropriate school personnel. And lastly, professional development. Southwest Tech will create a 2 to 3 year professional development plan for teachers and staff geared towards the areas identified and as potentially discovered in our Celequity recovery training. So that goes on for the next 20 some pages of the other high schools and other sending schools. It is essentially the same information with the school name changed and a little bit different language based on what type of systems they currently use at their school. So that's what I have. This is in draft form. Like I said, it does need to be approved by the board. Whether the board has seen this and agrees with it in theory. I can tell you that it will go, like I said, it does get submitted along with the board minutes saying that we discussed it and that it was approved. And then it will go to the AOE, and I suspect it will get kicked back more than once probably for additional edits and or comments. So I'm happy to try to answer questions for you. That's what I have without reading the entire 37 pages to you. So Jackie?
Yes, I have a question. Well, I have a couple of questions and comments. First of all, this is great, really great. But I wonder, with the, I questioned also why the kids are being pulled out of a tech program for services in special ed. And so with that, I automatically said, well, why don't we hire another special ed teacher with this program to take care of that problem? And so that person could be in tandem with the other people in the building. I don't know if that's a possibility, but personally, I would like a sped teacher in every classroom, but that's just me.
Jackie, if I could address that first question.
Okay.
So we are not currently seeing students being pulled. That's not an issue. It's an issue that we are anticipating could occur with the change in delivery structure for MAU. They've told us it's not going to, but I was also told to make sure that it's in our recovery plan as a potential stumbling block. So that's why it's in there.
Well, and if it does, I think we should hire more sped teachers just to take care of that problem. But anyway, that's just me. The other thing I looked at was there's a couple of parts in there. I've read all 37 pages, but there's a couple of parts in there that specify when the SST team checks on students. On page 15, it says monthly. On page 8, it says on a regular basis. So maybe I could suggest that if the team has this many people, one person would be responsible for each week. Because if a kid gets behind in 1 week, they need to be sat on before a month goes by. Because I mean, this ends in May, so we only really have 9 months. So that would mean, at least on page 15, that would mean that the team would only meet 9 times. And I don't think you mean that.
Right. I think it's a good point, Jackie, as you'll see the language is different, as some say monthly, some say weekly. I don't think we know yet exactly how often we're going to meet. We're developing this student support team from the ground up, basically, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are other models out there. But we need to see what it looks like first. But those are good points. Thank you.
Yes, and the other thing that I was wondering about, since these people are on your staff, do these people get compensated like for all these after-school meetings that we can anticipate them having? I'm sure like IEP meetings all happen after school sometimes. Some of them happen before school, but I'm anticipating that since this is an additional program, then they should be compensated additionally.
I don't know the answer to that right now, Jackie. It depends on the time of the day that these meet, and if it extends a teacher's current day, what program they're under, et cetera. So it could, but it doesn't necessarily trigger additional overtime or things like that. And I see that Dane has his hand raised. Jackie, I hope they answered your question.
Well, I had one more, and that was, I think the program's weak on assessment. So I think when it gets kicked back, I'd be glad to help with the assessment part of it.
Thanks.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask really quickly. I know that statewide there have been some issues with vacancies in special ed and mental health workforce. So did you guys have a conversation at all about being able to find the specialists to be able to do the work? Or do you feel confident that there's the staff necessary to do this work? And
I feel confident. I feel confident that between the organizations that we work with, we'll be able to find a staff member to, because remember, this is supplemental work. You know, this is not, there's nothing full-time here. I mean, maybe there will be, but we don't see it as full-time. So I'm confident that there's enough supplemental help to go around.
thank you.
But great question, Dane. Thanks. I don't see any.
Yeah, I'd like to move to accept the agreement or plan.
Second it. Okay, all those in favor of accepting the proposed plan to for submission, please raise your hand.
Aye.
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 It appears to unanimous.
Thank you. And I do not believe that this will come back to you again. Maybe the final form will. I'm not sure for approval, but maybe just to give you the polished copy to tell you what we're doing. You know, I will submit this today or tomorrow. Probably tomorrow. We'll go through it with one more comb and make sure that things are dotted and crossed and consistent. So, but I wanted you to have it yesterday in order to look at. So, thank you. And we have some interviews coming up here in a couple minutes. We've got some round 2 interviews of folks coming in from manufacturing.
Good.
Yes, which is great news. And we're down to 2 candidates that we interviewed a couple weeks ago, I think, Becky. And with some vacation time and things, we couldn't get them in here. But with the relaxed COVID restrictions, they are here today. Both of them will be here today. One's here now. To teach us a short lesson in the classroom on one of the lathes. And we've done this in the past with when we're torn between 2 candidates, we will usually have someone come in and teach a lesson. Normally it's the students, but obviously there's no students here except us. And I couldn't bribe any to come in either. And usually that helps separate the crowd, if you will. Of usually one person stands out afterwards of the what we think might be the better candidate. So that's what we're going to be doing next. And then the same thing for culinary. We have a few applicants for culinary as well. We have not started the interview process for that yet. That will likely start after the week after July 4th. I know that we plan on selecting candidates today or tomorrow to get them in here for interviews. And we'll do the same thing, hopefully bring them in if there's more than one and have them do a demo for us. So I don't expect that we'll have to call you back together again until August. So enjoy the rest of the summer off. And thank you for coming together last minute here to get the teacher's contract approved and also this recovery plan that has to go in tomorrow. So thank you for that.
Okay. I would accept this. Mike, thank you for working. I know you had some other things on your plate besides this, and I appreciate your
Just a couple, right?
jumping in and working with your staff on this and so forth. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 See you all. in
Thank you all very
August.
much.
Bye-bye.